I used to believe in fairy tales. Not the ones with princesses and castles, but the quiet kind where you marry your college sweetheart, buy a house with a white picket fence, raise 2 beautiful children, and grow old together on a porch swing. For 15 years, I lived that fairy tale. My husband, David, and I met at the University of Wisconsin in 2008. I was a nursing student, working double shifts at a local diner to pay my way through school. He was studying engineering, the kind of guy who always had a calculator in his pocket and a smile that could light up an entire room. We met at a campus coffee shop during finals week. I was stressed about my pediatric nursing exam, crying into my latte, completely oblivious to the world around me. He sat down next to me, pushed a napkin my way, and said, "I don't know what's wrong, but I hope this helps." On that napkin, he'd drawn a cartoon of a smiling sun giving a hug to a crying cloud. Underneath, he'd written, "Even clouds need sunshine sometimes." It was the sweetest thing anyone had ever done for me. We started talking for 3 hours until the coffee shop closed, and he walked me back to my dorm. He proposed in 2011 with his grandmother's diamond ring at that same coffee shop, and I said yes before he even finished asking. We married the following summer surrounded by 50 of our closest friends and family, dancing to "At Last" by Etta James, and I remember thinking, this is forever. By 2016, we had Emma, who came into the world screaming and hasn't stopped talking since. By 2018, we had Noah, who was so quiet and serious that the nurses called him the little professor. By 2023, we had the dream, a 4-bedroom colonial in a quiet neighborhood in Naperville, Illinois, 2 cars in the garage, a golden retriever named Cooper who thought he was a lap dog, a 401k that was actually growing, and a backyard where we hosted Memorial Day barbecues that the whole block attended. David worked as a senior project manager for a construction firm downtown, and I worked nights at the local hospital's emergency room so I could be home with the kids during the day. It was exhausting, but it was our exhausting, the life we built together. Or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there. But I just didn't want to see them. It started in January 2025 when David began working late 3 or 4 nights a week, always with excuses about a new project or a big client from out of state. Then came the phone. His iPhone became an extension of his body that he took to the bathroom, slept with under his pillow, angled away from me when scrolling, and protected with a new passcode he hadn't changed in 10 years. When I asked to use his phone one evening because mine was dead, his face went pale before he told me to use the iPad instead. The credit card statements arrived in February with charges I didn't recognize, $87 at the Capitol Grill, $124 at a wine bar called Vino and Vita, $56 at a boutique hotel lobby called the Ivy, plus charges for flowers, jewelry, and weekend getaways to Michigan wine country. David had explanations ready. Client dinners. Thank you flowers for clients. A gift for his assistant who'd been working overtime. I nodded and trusted him because he was my husband, the father of my children, my best friend. I was an idiot. April 15, 2025, tax day, was the night everything changed. David came home late around 11:30 p.m. smelling faintly of perfume I didn't recognize and wine we didn't have at home. He placed his phone on the nightstand and went to brush his teeth. I don't know what possessed me. Call it intuition. Call it 15 years of marriage whispering in my ear. Call it the faint smell of another woman's perfume. But I reached over and picked up his phone. It was unlocked. The first thing I saw was a text message from someone. Saved as M that read, "Tonight was perfect. I hate that you have to go home to her. I love you." Kiss emoji. My heart stopped. The room spun. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the phone. I scrolled up and read for 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours, discovering hundreds of messages spanning 3 months. I learned her name was Melissa Campbell, a 32-year-old marketing consultant who was divorced, no kids, lived in a luxury apartment in the West Loop with floor-to-ceiling windows, had long blonde hair and green eyes, and liked red wine, hiking, and men who actually listened. I learned their first kiss happened on January 17 in a parking garage after a client dinner that was actually just the two of them. I learned they'd been physical since February 3rd at a hotel near O'Hare. I learned he told her our marriage was already over emotionally, that I was just a roommate now, that he stayed only for the kids. I learned he bought her a gold locket from Tiffany's for Valentine's Day while giving me a store-bought card and a clearance plant from CVS. I learned they said, "I love you," for the first time on March 10th. I learned he was planning to leave me by summer, to let me plan Emma's 9th birthday party and help Noah with his baseball games while secretly counting down the days until he could abandon us for a woman he'd known for 3 months. The bathroom door opened. I put the phone back, closed my eyes, pretended to sleep while my heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. David climbed into bed, checked his phone one last time, typed something, probably, "Good night, I love you," to her, and was snoring within minutes while I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Over the next few days, I became a detective in my own marriage, checking his phone every time he showered or left it unattended. The messages got worse. On February 14th he wrote to Melissa about how I was happy with my clearance plant and had no idea he spent $400 on her. On March 5th he wrote that I was too busy with the kids and work to suspect anything, that I had no clue, that she had all of him and I just had the leftovers. On March 22nd he begged her to cancel girls' night because he needed her, saying she was his whole life. On April 2nd she asked if he'd cheat on her someday and he promised never, saying I was just the warm-up act and she was the main event. On April 10th he wrote that I bought his client dinner lies because I was naive and blind, that trust was just another word for not wanting to see what's right in front of you. I needed to know who this woman was, so I found her on Instagram, made a fake account, and watched her perfect life unfold. Brunch with friends. Vacations to Cabo. Gym selfies in Lululemon. Sunsets over Lake Michigan. And glimpses of my husband's hand on her shoulder, his shadow in hotel mirrors, 2 wine glasses at sunset with captions about finding someone who actually gets you. I learned she had no idea I existed. Or maybe she did and didn't care. But I realized she didn't make vows to me. He did. The burner phone was the final piece. I found it on a Sunday afternoon in early May when David took the kids to a movie. In the back of his desk drawer behind old tax documents, I found a cheap Android with no passcode containing messages to multiple women going back 2 years. There was Sarah from his gym, a personal trainer in her late 20s, with messages about meeting after workouts and how his wife didn't appreciate him. There was Tiffany from a work conference in Dallas with explicit photos and plans to meet whenever he traveled. There was Jessica, a 24-year-old waitress and single mom he'd been seeing for over a year who thought they were in a serious relationship. There was Megan, a divorced single mom from Emma's school he'd been grooming for months with late-night calls and emotional support. There were Rachel, Amanda, Katie. Names I didn't recognize. Conversations I couldn't bear to read. I sat on the floor of his office surrounded by evidence of 2 years of betrayal and didn't cry because I was past crying. I was just empty. I planned everything. I waited until the kids were with my parents for the weekend. I waited until we had nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. I waited until Saturday morning, when we'd normally have coffee together and discuss the week ahead. I made his favorite coffee and sat across from him at the kitchen table with a thick manila folder. "We need to talk," I said. He looked up from his phone. "That damn phone." "About what? Everything okay?" "No," I said. "Everything is not okay." I opened the folder. I placed the credit card statements. The Instagram screenshots. The text messages. The timeline of every date and location and lie. His face went from confusion to panic to white as I laid everything out. He tried to explain but I cut him off, telling him not to lie to me again. I told him about 4 months of me being a fool, of trusting him, of believing the man I loved would never do this, of reading his words calling me naive and blind and the warm-up act. Tears streamed down my face as I reminded him of 15 years of my life, of carrying his children, supporting his career, building a home, loving him with everything I had. What followed was the ugliest conversation of my life as he tried to blame me. I was lonely. You were always working nights. You pulled away after Noah was born. We've been roommates for years. She understands me in ways you never did. She makes me feel alive while you make me feel tired and old and invisible. Each excuse was a knife, but beneath the pain, anger grew. I didn't yell or scream, just let him dig his own grave. When he finished, I asked if he ever planned to tell me or if I was supposed to find out when he moved out that summer. The look on his face told me everything. He knew he was going to destroy our family and he was going to let me discover it on my own terms in the most painful way possible. He whispered that he was going to tell me, he just didn't know how. I reminded him he'd had 4 months to figure out how to be honest while lying to my face every single day. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the burner phone, placing it on the table, watching his face go from white to gray as I told him I found it in his desk drawer. 2 years of messages to Sarah, Tiffany, Jessica, Megan, and God knows who else. 2 years of lying, cheating, coming home to me and pretending to be faithful. Melissa wasn't his first affair or even his 5th, just the one he got caught with. He mumbled that it wasn't like that. But I cut him off saying I understood perfectly that I'd been married to a stranger, that every kiss and hug and, "I love you," for 2 years had been a lie, that I gave my life to a man who never deserved a single minute of it. When he reached for me, I stood and stepped back, telling him never to touch me again. David moved out that weekend. The kids came home on Sunday to an empty house with his clothes gone from the closet, his bathroom products gone from the sink, his office stripped bare. I told them Daddy was on a business trip. The last lie I ever told about their father. The truth came a week later in joint therapy sessions where we sat them down together and I told Emma and Noah we were getting a divorce. 9-year-old Emma started crying with great heaving sobs while 7-year-old Noah looked confused and asked if I did something bad. The question hit me like a physical blow. When David opened his mouth, I cut him off, telling Noah that Mommy didn't do anything bad, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and hurt people they love without meaning to, and sometimes it's better for everyone if they don't live together anymore. It was the kindest version of the truth. Also a lie because he didn't make a mistake. He made thousands of choices over years to betray us, and he wasn't sorry he did it. Just sorry he got caught. The divorce was finalized in October 2025 and it was ugly. David fought for everything. The house. The cars. Even custody of Cooper the dog. Wanting to pay as little child support as possible while painting me as the unstable one whose invasion of his privacy destroyed the marriage. His lawyer called me obsessive and paranoid while my lawyer laughed, saying discovering years of infidelity wasn't paranoia but evidence. In the end, I got the house but had to sell it to pay legal fees. I got primary custody with him having every other weekend. I got the dog because he didn't fight that hard. And I got enough child support to keep us afloat but not live comfortably. We sold the house in November. The dream house with the white picket fence where we brought Emma home from the hospital and Noah took his first steps and we celebrated 15 Christmases and 15 birthdays and 15 years of what I thought was love. I moved into a 3-bedroom apartment across town, smaller and cheaper with no yard for Cooper and no memories but mine. David married Melissa in December 2025, 6 months after I discovered the affair and 8 months after their first kiss, sending a wedding announcement with a professional photo of them smiling in front of a Christmas tree that I threw in the trash, then took out and read every word, then threw away again, then cried for an hour. The kids spend every other weekend at their modern condo downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows, telling me about Melissa learning to cook but not very good, her great taste but everything is white and they're not allowed to touch anything, her attempts to bond by taking them to a Bears game and buying matching jerseys and trying to teach Emma makeup and taking Noah to a science museum. Emma told me one night while making dinner that Melissa isn't their mom. She tries to be but she's not. She doesn't know what they like or that Noah's scared of the dark or that Emma hates mushrooms. She's just there. I smiled and said she's not trying to replace me, just trying to be part of their life, and the more people who love you the better. Inside, I was screaming that she was living my life, sleeping in his bed, hearing his secrets, getting the man I loved for 15 years. A month after the wedding, I got a text from an unknown number that said, "I know what he did to you. He did it to me too. Want to compare notes?" From Jessica. It was the waitress from the restaurant near his office, the one he'd been seeing for over a year who thought they were in a serious relationship. We met for coffee at a Starbucks, and she told me everything. How he'd promised her a future, said he was leaving me, talked about moving in together and getting married and having kids. Then he met Melissa and she became a memory. She found my name in public divorce records, found my Facebook, saw photos of me with the kids and the dog and him from years ago, and realized she wasn't special, just one of many women he used while pretending to be someone he wasn't. We sat for 3 hours swapping stories and comparing timelines, discovering he used the same lines with both of us. The same promises. The same lies. Telling me I was cold and distant while telling her I was crazy and controlling. Telling both of us what we needed to hear to keep us hooked. She called him a predator. Not legally but emotionally. Someone who hunts for women who need validation, who are lonely and vulnerable, who are young and struggling and desperate to be loved. Using them until he's bored, then moving to the next. After meeting Jessica, I reached out to Megan from Emma's school, and she agreed to meet at a park where she told me through tears that David said we were already divorced, just living together for the kids until the house sold, that I had a boyfriend, making her feel like she wasn't doing anything wrong. I didn't get angry because she was a victim too, telling her he's good at making you feel like the special one, the only one, the one who truly understands him. And she didn't fall for anything because she trusted someone who seemed trustworthy, which isn't stupidity but humanity. In June 2026, I ran into Melissa at a Target in the school supply aisle. We saw each other at the same moment and froze, both evaluating each other. My messy ponytail and yoga pants against her perfect blonde hair and expensive jeans. And then she started crying. Apologizing over and over. She told me she didn't know at first, that he said we were separated and the divorce was already happening, that he showed her fake texts making it look like I was seeing someone else. And she didn't find out the truth until after they were married. I believed her. Or wanted to. Needed to believe someone in this mess was innocent. Then she whispered that he was doing it again. That she found messages to someone new, a personal trainer from his gym named Kristen. The same pattern of late nights and secret phones and excuses starting all over again. I should have felt satisfaction or vindication but instead just felt sad. Sad for her. Sad for me. Sad for every woman who would come after us. Sad for my children who would grow up watching their father cycle through women like they were disposable. I told her he doesn't change and never will, that he's incapable of it, and she has to decide if she can live with always wondering and checking and being second to his next obsession. She nodded, wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and said she didn't think she could. I left her there in the school supply aisle and went to find my daughter without looking back. Now it's October 2026, almost a year since the divorce was finalized and 18 months since that night with the phone. Emma is 10 in 4th grade, loves reading and soccer, and has started asking more detailed questions about why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. And I give her age-appropriate answers without lying or burdening her. Her with the full truth that someday she'll know when she's old enough to understand that people are complicated and love can coexist with betrayal, and her father is not a monster but a deeply flawed human being. Noah is 8, quiet and thoughtful, drawing pictures of our family. Me, him, Emma, Cooper the dog. Sometimes including David and sometimes not. And I don't ask why because he'll talk when ready. Melissa filed for divorce in August after 6 months of marriage, getting the condo and the car and a decent settlement while David is already with Kristen the personal trainer. The cycle continuing as it always will. I sold the apartment and bought a small house with 3 bedrooms, a tiny backyard where Cooper can run, and a porch swing where I sit every evening with tea. Not the dream house but mine, with no memories of him and no ghosts in the corners. Just me and the kids and a fresh start. I started dating nothing serious, just coffee dates and dinner, terrifying and exciting and weird all at once. Not sure I'll ever trust anyone the way I trusted David, but also not sure I want to because trust is overrated and respect is what matters now. Respect for myself first and foremost. I've learned hard important things over this year and a half. That trust is fragile, taking years to build and seconds to destroy. That love isn't enough to survive deception and betrayal. That the signs are always there but we don't want to see them. That cheaters don't change but just continue their pattern of validation seeking and dissatisfaction. And most importantly, that you can survive. I didn't think I could. Thought my life was over and I'd never be happy again. But I'm here standing, raising two amazing resilient kids, working and laughing and living and even dating. And it's not the life I planned or the fairy tale I believed in, but it's my life and I'm determined to make it a good one. If you're reading this and you're where I was, staring at a phone screen at 3 a.m. with your world crumbling around you, wondering how you got here and how you'll ever get out, I want you to know it's not your fault. Say it again until you believe it, because you didn't cause this and you didn't deserve this and you could have been the perfect spouse and it still wouldn't have mattered, because this wasn't about you but about their choices and failures and inability to do the hard work of maintaining a relationship. You are not alone, because millions of women have walked this path before and millions will walk it after. And you are part of a sisterhood you never asked to join, but you don't have to carry this burden alone. Reach out to friends and family and therapists and support groups and read the stories of others who survived. You will get through this, even though it will hurt, with days you can't get out of bed and days you can't stop crying and days you're so angry you can't see straight and days you miss them so much it feels like dying. But there will also be days you laugh real laughs and feel hopeful and look in the mirror and recognize yourself again and realize you're stronger than you ever knew. Today I'm sitting on my porch swing on a beautiful October afternoon with the leaves changing gold and red and orange, the air crisp and smelling like autumn. Emma inside doing homework at the kitchen table. Noah playing in the backyard with Cooper, who's chasing a ball and failing and trying again and never giving up. I watch them through the window. My son, my daughter, my dog. My little family, broken in some ways but healing in others. And my phone buzzes with a text from my sister saying, "Thinking of you. Love you. Dinner this weekend?" Not a secret message. Not a lie. Not a betrayal. Just love. Simple. Honest. Real. That's what I have now. Simple, honest, real. Not the fairy tale I once believed in or the perfect life I thought I had, but something better. The truth. And after years of lies, the truth is enough.